Imagine growing up in a town where your last name carried more weight than the law itself. Police officers knew your family. Judges respected your family. Lawyers feared your family. For nearly a century, one family controlled justice in a small corner of South Carolina. They prosecuted criminals, built fortunes, and influenced politicians. The Murdaugh name seemed untouchable. But behind the wealth, power, and perfect image, a web of lies was quietly growing. It would eventually lead to millions of dollars disappearing, a family destroyed, and one of the most shocking murder trials in modern American history. This is the story of Alex Murdaugh, a man who appeared to have everything: power, money, and respect. Yet somehow, it still wasn't enough. Because greed doesn't always begin with stealing. Sometimes, it begins with believing you'll never get caught. To understand how everything collapsed, you first have to understand the Murdaugh dynasty. Beginning in 1920, 3 generations of Murdaugh men served as elected prosecutors across South Carolina's Lowcountry. For nearly 90 years, they built powerful relationships with judges, sheriffs, police officers, and politicians. In Hampton County, the family wasn't simply respected, they were an institution. Alex Murdaugh was born into that legacy. Success wasn't something he had to earn. It was expected. He became a lawyer, joined the family law firm, and built a reputation as a successful personal injury attorney. He and his wife, Maggie, raised 2 sons, Buster and Paul, while living a life of wealth and influence, including ownership of the sprawling Moselle hunting estate. To outsiders, everything looked perfect. But prosecutors later alleged that behind the scenes, Alex had been stealing money from clients for years. Many of those clients weren't wealthy investors. They were accident victims, grieving families, and people who trusted him during the hardest moments of their lives. Instead of receiving the settlements they deserved, prosecutors said millions of dollars were quietly diverted through fraudulent financial schemes. There were no dramatic robberies, just signatures, wire transfers, and financial paperwork few people questioned. After all, who questions their own attorney, especially one from the most powerful legal family in the region? For years, the scheme remained hidden. Money kept flowing, the law firm prospered, and the family's luxurious lifestyle continued without suspicion. But every secret has an expiration date. By 2021, Alex's law partners had begun noticing missing money. Financial records were reviewed, difficult questions were asked, and for the first time in years, Alex faced something he had always managed to avoid: accountability. Then, another tragedy pushed the Murdaugh family into the national spotlight. In February 2019, Alex's younger son Paul was involved in a late-night boating accident. Authorities alleged that Paul, who was reportedly intoxicated, crashed the family boat into a bridge piling. 19-year-old Mallory Beach was thrown into the water and later found dead. The accident devastated 2 families and sparked multiple civil lawsuits. As the legal pressure mounted, Alex's finances came under even greater scrutiny. The walls protecting one of South Carolina's most powerful families were finally beginning to crack. No one imagined what would happen next. Because on the evening of June 7, 2021, 2 members of the Murdaugh family would be found brutally murdered, and the man who called 911 would soon become the center of the investigation himself. On the night of June 7, 2021, at 10:07 p.m., a frantic 911 call came from the Moselle hunting estate. Alex Murdaugh told the dispatcher, "My wife and child have been shot. Please hurry." When deputies arrived, they found a horrifying scene. Maggie Murdaugh and her son Paul had both been shot multiple times near the property's dog kennels. The murders stunned South Carolina. Friends and colleagues rallied around Alex, seeing him as a grieving husband and father, not a suspect. But investigators immediately began examining every detail. Alex claimed he had visited his mother that evening and wasn't near the kennels before discovering the bodies. At first, there was little reason to doubt him. There were no eyewitnesses, no murder weapon, and no surveillance footage. Then, one cell phone video changed everything. Months later, investigators recovered a short recording from Paul's phone, captured only minutes before prosecutors said the murders occurred. Paul had simply been filming one of the family's dogs. But in the background, 3 voices could be heard: Paul, Maggie, and a third voice investigators identified as Alex Murdaugh. For months, Alex had insisted he wasn't at the kennels. Now his own son's phone appeared to place him there just minutes before the killings. One casual video destroyed one of the most important parts of his story. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered years of alleged financial fraud. Prosecutors claimed Alex had stolen millions of dollars from clients, business partners, and others who trusted him. The timing raised a disturbing question. Were the murders connected to a desperate attempt to stop his financial crimes from being exposed? By September 2021, the pressure reached a breaking point. Alex resigned from his law firm after partners confronted him about missing money. Hours later, the firm publicly accused him of misappropriating client funds. Then, the story took another unbelievable turn. Just 3 months after the murders, Alex called 911 again, claiming he had been shot while changing a tire on a rural road. At first, many believed someone was targeting the Murdaugh family, but investigators quickly concluded the shooting had been staged. According to prosecutors, Alex arranged the attack himself, so his surviving son, Buster, could collect a multi-million-dollar life insurance payout. The alleged shooter wasn't a mysterious assassin, but a distant cousin and former client. Public opinion shifted almost overnight. If Alex could allegedly stage his own shooting, what else was he capable of? Investigators soon reopened another case involving the family's longtime housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, who had died years earlier after a fall at the Murdaugh home. Her family believed they would receive a large insurance settlement. Instead, prosecutors alleged millions of dollars were diverted through fraudulent schemes and never reached her heirs. By now, investigators had uncovered a pattern: financial fraud, insurance fraud allegations, a staged roadside shooting, and the murders of Maggie and Paul. The once powerful Murdaugh dynasty was collapsing. But prosecutors still had one challenge left. They had to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Alex Murdaugh murdered his own wife and son. And they believed they had the evidence to do it. By early 2023, a South Carolina courtroom had become the center of one of America's biggest true crime stories. For 6 weeks, prosecutors argued that Alex Murdaugh wasn't driven by hatred, but by desperation. Years of alleged financial fraud were catching up to him. His law firm was questioning missing money. Lawsuits from the fatal boating accident were closing in, and the empire he had inherited was collapsing. According to prosecutors, the murders shifted attention away from his financial crimes, at least temporarily. Piece by piece, the evidence came together. Cell phone records tracked the victim's final movements. Vehicle data followed Alex's timeline. Witnesses pointed out inconsistencies in his statements. But one piece of evidence stood above everything else: Paul's cell phone video. A simple recording of a dog. Yet in the background, prosecutors said Alex's voice could clearly be heard, placing him at the kennels just minutes before the murders, directly contradicting the story he had told investigators. Then came one of the trial's biggest surprises. Alex Murdaugh took the witness stand. He admitted he had lied to investigators about being at the kennels, claiming years of opioid addiction had made him paranoid and distrustful of law enforcement. But while he admitted lying, he insisted he did not kill Maggie and Paul. Prosecutors focused on something else. If he had repeatedly lied about money, if he had lied to his clients, if he had lied to police, why should the jury believe him now? On March 2nd, 2023, after less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury reached its verdict: guilty. Alex Murdaugh was convicted of murdering his wife Maggie and his son Paul the following day. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. His legal troubles didn't end there. In later court proceedings, Alex admitted guilt to numerous financial crimes, acknowledging that he had stolen millions of dollars from clients, business partners, and the family of longtime housekeeper Gloria Satterfield. For many victims, that money represented medical care, children's education, and a chance to rebuild their lives after tragedy. Looking back, it's easy to focus on the murders. But the story of Alex Murdaugh is also about what happens when power goes unquestioned. For generations, the Murdaugh name opened doors. Reputation earned trust, and trust became the perfect cover for years of deception. In the end, the dynasty that had dominated South Carolina's legal system for nearly a century collapsed in just a few years. A family was destroyed. Countless victims were betrayed, and the man who once stood among the state's most respected attorneys will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Greed rarely begins with one enormous crime. It starts with one compromise, one lie, one dishonest decision, until the truth becomes impossible to escape. Alex Murdaugh inherited power, wealth, and influence. But in the end, none of it could save him. Because history keeps teaching the same lesson: power can be inherited, money can be earned, reputation can take a lifetime to build. But greed can destroy all three in an instant. Because in the end, greed never wins. Follow for more stories.